CPAC was nothing short of an amazing event for many reasons, but unfortunately, it is being slandered, tarred, and feathered in the media by narrative agents who are trying to deceive you and trying to manipulate your perception. And I, as an attendee of CPAC, as a Gen Z attendee of CPAC, the target audience for these manipulators, will explain what I mean in a second. But if you are all new here, I would encourage you to like this channel, subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment, and do more so I can continue to give you guys this kind of content. So, as many of you know, I actually attended CPAC 2022 in Dallas between August 4th, 2022 and August 7th. And I have so many different thoughts teeming through my head, but the conference featured so many different people, such as Steve Bannon, the former Trump White House advisor and the ever so eminent host of the War Room podcast, Mike Lindell, Matt Gaetz was there, Marjorie Taylor Greene was there, Lauren Boebert was there. Almost everyone who is anyone in the conservative movement was there. Ted Cruz was there. Sean Hannity was there. Jesse Kelly was there. So many people were there. And so, since there were a great deal of conservative influencers and politicians at that event, there were also a great deal of leftist influencers and media people. I like to call them narrative agents, i.e. someone who is in service of a single idea at the expense of the truth. They were also there, and their work is essentially the perception that so many people on the internet are getting of CPAC. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to express my feelings about the perception of CPAC in the media, and then I'm going to express my feelings about what I think the conference truly stood for: the good, bad, and the ugly. So, my friends, during the conference, and during any conference that I go on to, I have a rule. I do not like to look at my phone or look at the media or look at the news while I'm at the conference. However, I was so oblivious and unaware at just the extent of the left-wing media that were actually at the concert and what they were doing until another attendee pointed out to me. He said, "Christian, there's this journalist from Vice, and there's one from New Republic, and they're all here, and they're all live tweeting their coverage of the conference, and they're slandering people." And one of the greatest instances of this slander came from the Vice journalist Tess Owens, who privated her Twitter account during the conference since people were looking her up and were holding her accountable and looking at her views. She filmed Brandon Straka, the founder of Walkway Foundation, who famously did a reenactment, a skit of his dealings with the January 6th mafia, who charged him with a crime and who have also charged many innocent people who did nothing violent or nothing to the extent that some people did, and are being held in deplorable conditions. He did a reenactment to sort of channel what they're going through, to be a voice for the voiceless, and also, I presume, to heal himself from the unfortunate treatment that he faced by being close to the Capitol on that fateful day. I was there for the performance. I was very close to the performance. I stayed there for about 30 minutes. The performance went on for like a long time. I had the beautiful opportunity of meeting Brandon Straka's mother and talking to her about everything, and I was just thrilled. But there was also the journalist Tess Owens there, and she tweeted out that Brandon Straka's performance was the greatest instance of political theater she's ever seen. Joe Walsh, someone who I've had on my own program, went on CNN, and then he said that performance from Brandon Straka just shows how all the MAGA people are willing to endorse insurrection, endorse terrorism, and how his party is, in his words, anti-democracy. He went on with Jim Acosta, who's also a narrative agent, and who was during the entire time bad-mouthing people who Walsh once claimed to throw his lot in with. My friends, the lies, the manipulation, the epistemic trickery that is going on here is nothing short of disgraceful, especially in a nation such as ours that is founded on the idea of objective and discoverable truth through the faculty of reason. There is nothing at all in Straka's performance which said that he excused any bad behavior, and it was everything to do with what the media does not want to talk about, with the forgotten people who have been thrown into jail, who have been held for many months on end, simply, some of them for trespassing charges, and simply for other non-violent offenses related to January 6th. And yet, the media has painted that on many different occasions as Straka and others cozying up to insurrectionists. What does that term even mean? That term by itself is a loaded term, because there was no insurrection on January 6th. There was a protest that got out of hand, and there were a very small sliver of people out of the hundreds of others charged who actually did anything violent. Anyway, that's a different story for a different day. That was one of the big narratives coming out of the conference. But also, Viktor Orban's presence also made people quite mad as well. Now, I'll say this much. Viktor Orban, I'm not a fan of Viktor Orban. He's the Prime Minister of Hungary. I'm not a fan of Viktor Orban. I think that he has many illiberal policies. I think that he is mostly in it for himself. I think that he wants to direct the narrative in his own country to please him, to conform to him. He has passed laws where he can decide what is misinformation and what is not misinformation and then act accordingly. I don't believe in that kind of power, and I don't think that anyone like Viktor Orban should be 10,000 feet close to an American conservatism conference. Having said that, the Lincoln Project used Viktor Orban's appearance at CPAC to liken the entire conference to Hiterlism. They made an advertisement where they showed a Nazi rally and then juxtaposed that with the CPAC rally, and particularly the time Orban spoke. This Nazi narrative is being played out by other personalities as well. Steve Schmidt, who is a political consultant, he's actually a very popular guy. He has gone very far to the left, many of his analysis, said the following on Twitter, and he wrote this on Substack. He said, "The extremist crowd in Dallas was cheering Hitlerism and a foreign leader who wants to see America torn apart. He wants to wreck American freedom, institutions, and democracy. Orban sees himself as Putin light for now, and he smells an audience at CPAC." Schmidt goes on, "The fascist movement and Trump's return as a presidential candidate is dependent on the fact that the exhausted majority is too exhausted to care about vandalism being done to the cause of freedom and the interests of a few who want to build power and build and not take." So here's the problem, because Raw Story also came out with an article saying that CPAC was a practice in unapologetic fascism and that Donald Trump was a sort of center point of that. Another journalist, who Barry Weiss, of all people, retweeted, essentially said that CPAC was a gathering of grifters, insurrectionists, and misfits. This is what is being projected onto this conference. And when these terms are used, when these concepts are used and they're not justified, you as a listener should be very concerned, because what a lot of people will do, they will hear these terms, they'll hear the word fascism, and they won't actually consider what fascism is. They'll just approximate how they emotionally feel about the word fascism and then juxtapose it against whatever they don't like. In this case, it's CPAC. Fascism is the merger of the individual, state, and existence. Put it in Mussolini's words. Mussolini famously said that his project, his fascist project, rejected individual rights. It rejected the principles of the American experiment, and it saw all of history, all of existence as composed into the nation. For the fascist, there is only the nation. There is only the collective. There is no individual. There is no freedom. Now, with that understanding of what fascism is, let's us see if what we saw at CPAC sounds anything like fascism, or in the words of Schmidt, Hitlerism. Go.
We do have the world's reserve currency. How are we going to keep it? Some people would tell you that we're going to keep it by being more like China. We just passed the CHIPS Act. We need to have a government-controlled economy, a planned economy, just like China. And the answer isn't to be more like China. The answer is to be more like America. Let's get back to our country and our way of life. More freedom, less government, and sound money.
Is that fascism? Let's do one more from the man himself who is being accused of being Hitler-esque, Mr. Trump. Go.
And if federal bureaucrats are going to push this radicalism, we should abolish the Department of Education.
Do any of these things sound like fascism to you? Do any of these things sound like Hiterlism to you? What Schmidt and the Raw Story and other people are doing is they are using a term that they're using the principle of a term that I often use in this show called proximity ethics. Proximity ethics is when you try to assume that something is bad or good on the basis of what it is close to as opposed to its content. And so, since CPAC is close to Viktor Orban, you're going to judge the entire conference, which spanned over 3 to 4 days and was filled of many different speakers saying many different things, largely echoing general Republican rhetoric on freedom and individualism and a good economy and the nation state. And you're going to use that to paint the entire conference as a Hitler summit. It's proximity ethics. It is itself unethical. It is itself dishonest, and it is itself an attempt at narrative control, at poisoning the minds of the American people and of anyone else who has the displeasure of trusting the words that fall from these emissaries of the media. That's what's going on here. A battle for knowledge, a battle for truth is happening. At this conference, I didn't see a single instance of Hitlerism or fascism. As you saw in those clips, even Donald Trump was talking about freedom, the Constitution, and all of these things stand athwart of the ideologies that CPAC is being accused of hosting. Now, as for my personal thoughts on CPAC, I think that this event is a great reference point for the future of the conservative movement. I think that the future of the conservative movement is a few things. Number one, it is MAGA. And number two, it is also largely the same as it was before. MAGA, Make America Great Again, is largely a stylistic departure from the consensus conservatism that came out of the Reagan era, came out of the Goldwater era, and has really been struggling and fighting different factions within conservatism for the past few decades now. But MAGA is largely an attempt for people who feel aggrieved, for people who feel as if their country has gone down a path of no return, to act against that against the regression that they see by reasserting some fundamental ideas and basically leaving the rest to fate. MAGA is composed of so many different people. I talked to several people at that conference who were actually more libertarian than anything else. I talked to some centrists. I talked to people who actually didn't even have an underlying political value system, but they knew one thing. They love America, and they want to see a few things. They want to see a strong border, in their words. They want to see a nation that is not racked by crime. They want to see Second Amendment protection. Most people, my friends, don't conceptualize politics in terms of value systems and general structures. Most people conceptualize politics in terms of how they feel about particular issues. There's a danger in this, but there's also a benefit in this. The benefit in this is that you really cannot be accused of being something like a fascist, because to be a fascist, you have to think like a fascist, you have to believe like a fascist, and that means you have to have an underlying value system. Not many people in MAGA have an underlying value system. They know where they stand on particular areas. When you can have someone, a Ron Paul libertarian like Warren Davidson, Congressman Warren Davidson, have a speech about sound money, a few speeches before Donald Trump's speech, and get applause from the crowd when he mentions Ron Paul, who is very libertarian, very different from MAGA, what does that tell you? This is a big tent event. So the future is MAGA, but the future is also the same kind of principles that we have seen reflected politically in the conservative movement over the past few decades, with a few caveats. Obviously, there's a more nationalist character to CPAC than there was in the 80s. Obviously, there's a more protectionist character. There's more emphasis on protectionist trade policies. I had a nice conversation with the American First Policy people, who I don't agree with at all on their economics. And their foreign policy, they're fine, but on the economics, they don't agree at all. But obviously, there's a lot of different facets to the conservative movement right now that are different than before. But it largely is still focused on the Constitution. It largely is still focused on the individual. It largely is still focused on freedom. It's largely focused on beating back the culturally illiberal forces that we see arising from the postmodern left, trying to take over institutions, trying to weaponize institutions against average everyday people or against dissidents who are against woke stuff like DEI and ESG and so on and so forth. What we're seeing is not an uprising of fascism or authoritarianism on the right. What we're seeing is an emotional expression of MAGA being used to go against what many people who have good intentions view to be the cultural rot in America, and a lot of those expressions are still surrounded within the framework of the classically liberal idea of what America is. This is what is going on, my friends. This is the status and condition of the conservative movement. I am not a nationalist. I believe in national sovereignty, but I do not believe in state worship. I'm not a protectionist. I believe in free trade all the way. But even with these kind of views, there's still a place for people like me and others in today's conservative movement in America. And CPAC reflected that more than any other event I have seen thus far. That is the rundown, my friends. CPAC is, again, the best reference point we have for the conservative movement, and right now, the future of the conservative movement is very bright, in my opinion. There were a few controversies that arose during the conference, some of which I witnessed. Alex Stein, someone who I know, confronted Tess Owens, and his clip went viral on Twitter for doing so, and there's mixed opinions about how one feels about what he did.
So this is the Vice reporter. You can tell the only one in a mask here. So how are you doing?
Just doing my job.
She's here trolling everybody here. So she's the only one here in a mask, and she's just saying negative stuff. I can't believe they let you in here. Do you feel like you're lying or sheep in the lion's den?
I have credentials to be here. So.
Yeah, so do I. But I'm saying, see, this is Vice, guys. This person, she's trying to troll this event. She thinks all of you guys are losers. So that's what she posts on the internet. She posts the most out of context stuff. See, Vice is the worst media company there is. I know, but don't you think Vice is a bunch of liars?
No, I'm very proud.
Oh, you're proud of, you guys mainly talk about drugs. Are you a drug addict too? Like all the Vice content you make? Guys, this is the Vice. Guys, this person, she's a loser right here. She's the only one in a mask. You see this? This is what a loser looks like. She's got her coronavirus. How many vaccines do you have? Are you on your 5th vaccine?
It's none of your business.
Oh, it's not? So why do you want to mandate them if it's none of my business? Are you pro-vaccine mandates? Oh, it's none of my business, but she's pro-vaccine mandates. Guys, you see this? This is what a Vice journalist looks like. She comes here. This is what a Vice journalist looks like in her little mask at the conservative event. Now she's scared. She's getting attention.
I'm getting married in 2 weeks. That's why.
Oh, that's great. You're getting married. I wonder how many vaccines he has.
He basically got up and talked to her and said, "Hey, why are you here?" He was screaming a little bit. He was being very comedic, very overdramatic, like Alex normally is. That's how he is. And I witnessed the entire thing. I saw it, and personally, I think that there is a justified strain of anger against journalists who were at CPAC, who were on the left, because many of those journalists, like Tess Owens, were spending their time slandering good people, calling them fascist, calling them strange, calling them eccentric, looking down at them, while at the same time being at their event and interacting with them. It's as if they came to the event wrapped in a bubble of sort of impenetrability, and they kept their narrative, they kept their goal in their head their entire time, and just kept moving forward, as opposed to duly considering their positions. My friends, what we saw at CPAC over the past few days, all of what we saw at CPAC, there's much to be happy for, and there's some things not to be happy about. But there's one thing I can certainly say. What I saw at CPAC was not a gathering of authoritarians. It was not a gathering of idiots and doofuses. What I saw at CPAC was a gathering of people who, flawed or not, genuinely love the idea of America and want to do what they believe is best to preserve, perpetuate, and reinforce that idea for posterity. Anyone with that foundational set of principles is an ally and friend of mine, even if we differ on how to get there or we differ on the style. My style is much more studious and things of that sort. Some people are much more of a bomb thrower. I understand that. But that's not what matters. What matters is, are you on the side of freedom? Are you on the side of the Constitution? Are you on the side of liberty? Do you respect and endorse the axioms upon which America is based? Do you respect and endorse the principles upon which our structure of government is based? Or do you rebel against them? If you rebel against them, you are an enemy of mine. If you respect them, no matter what style you have or what side you're on, then we can work together, hopefully toward the right, the good, what this country needs to succeed. I'll leave you with one thing. One of the best moments of CPAC is when Steve Bannon said this. When you have that kind of language coming out of a major political conference, whereas many years ago that would have been seen as a fringe position, then my goodness, something right is going on. My friends, think on it. I love you guys so much. If you love me, please be sure to support my channel. Again, please be sure to go to Patreon, patreon.com/PhilCWatson, or please go to my PayPal, which can be officialcwatson@gmail.com. Be sure to like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to this channel, share this video. My friends, thank you guys so much for listening. I love you guys so much, and please stay offensive. Bye, guys.